Hello and welcome to Drawing Histograms with Cubit Education. In this lecture, you will represent grouped continuous data on a histogram. You will find the frequency density in order to draw a histogram. And you will understand that the area of each bar represents the frequency. So this is the main formula that you are going to need to know today. In the previous histogram lecture on interpreting histograms, it was working out the frequency, which was the frequency density times the class width. In this case, because you're going to be drawing them, we're going to need to be working out the frequency density, which is the frequency divided by the class width. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we go through some examples. So here's an example question. Adam collected data on the time taken to complete a simple puzzle. Draw a histogram to represent these data. So again, this is grouped continuous data because it's grouped because it's between a certain amount, and it's continuous because it's time. So time can be in any value. So it could be 43.2 seconds or it could be 40 seconds, but it is continuous. Okay. So again, I'll remind you that discrete data is where you can only have a whole number answer, like how many people attended Morrison's today. Okay, it can't be 5.5 people. It has to be one whole rounded number. Okay, so you are being told in this frequency table that it took 6 people between 40 and 60 seconds to complete a simple puzzle. It also took 6 people between 60 and 70 seconds. It took 10 people between 70 and 80 seconds. It took 7 people between 80 and 90 seconds. And it took 6 people between 90 and 120 seconds. Okay, so your job is to now represent that on a histogram. So we need to work out the class width. Now the class width is easy because it's basically just the difference between these two numbers. So between 40 and 60 it's 20, 60 and 70 is 10, 70 and 80 is 10, 80 and 90 is 10, and 90 to 120 is 30. So we just write them in to make it easier and we've got all of our information. The next thing you need to work out is the frequency density. The frequency density is just, we take the frequency and we divide it by the class width. So 6 divided by 20. And actually it's written like a fraction for you if you draw your table out like this. 6 over 20. 6 over 20. Okay, giving us a frequency density of 0.3. Then it's 6 over 10, which is 0.6. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 7 divided by 10 is 0.7. And 6 divided by 30 is 0.2. So now we have all the information that we need. Next, we draw our axes. Our axes are drawn with the time in seconds across the bottom and the frequency density along the side. So the vertical axis is always the frequency density, which is why we had to work it out. And the time in seconds, or whatever information was given here, goes along the bottom. We then use our information to draw in our bars. So the first bar goes from 40 to 60, okay, because it says here, and has a frequency density of 0.3, so the bar goes up to 0.3. The next one has a class width of 10, okay, so between 60 and 70, so between 60 and 70, and it goes up to 0.6, so on our bar going up to there. Our next one is between 70 and 80, so between 70 and 80, and it goes up to 1. Next we have between 80 and 90, and it goes up to 0.7. Next is between 90 and 120, and it goes up to 0.2. So as you can see, it's fairly easy to draw a histogram once you've got all the information you need. It's just remembering what you need to find out and knowing what you've got. So just remember that the area is the frequency in histograms, okay? So the area of this, okay, so that would be 20 times 0.3, okay, which would give us 6, is our frequency as told here, and the area of that is our frequency. Okay, as you've learned in the other histogram lesson. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you go and watch that one first. Might help. Okay, so let's look at another example. Emma collected data on the heights of pupils in year 9. Draw a histogram to represent the data. So here we have the height and we have the frequency. So the first thing we need to do is find the class width. So between 100 and 130 is 30. Between 130 and 140 is 10. 140 and 150, 50 to 60, and then 160 to 180 is 20. So you're just finding the differences, okay, and putting that there. Then we're going to work out our frequency density. Again, our frequency density is easy because it's written here as a fraction for you. 3 divided by 30 is 0.1, 5 divided by 10 is 0.5, 8 divided by 10 is 0.8, 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 6 divided by 20 is 0.3. Okay, so hopefully you can remember what I told you in the last example. Whatever information you have here goes across the bottom, and your frequency density goes on the vertical axis. Okay, so this is your vertical axis and your horizontal axis. And also make sure you label them with frequency density and height or whatever information is given here. We then need to check that we have our class width, so between 100 and 130, our frequency density is 0.1. So between 100 and 130, we need to draw a bar going up to 0.1. And then between 130 and 140, we need to draw a bar going up to 0.5. Between 140 and 150, we need to draw a bar going up to 0.8. And between 150 and 160, we need to draw a bar going up to 1. And finally, between 160 and 180, we need to draw a bar going up to 0.3. Okay, so that is really it. That's all you really need to know in order to draw a histogram. What I would like you to do now is pause the video, and there are 4 questions here. Now you don't have to do all of them. Choose a couple, or it's up to you. I'm going to go through the answers, but not too in depth at the end, so after you've had a go. So please pause the video now. Okay, if you pause the video and had a go at those questions, I'm just going to insert all the answers that you would have needed. So you've got the class width here. So between 4 and 8 is 4. Between 8 and 10 is 2. So 8, 9, 10, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13, 14, and then 14 to 20 is 6. So you've got your class width and then your frequency density. Okay, so 2 divided by 4, 5 divided by 2, 9 divided by 2, 6 divided by 2, and 6 divided by 6. Okay. Then on this one here, class width is 20, 10, 10, and 30, and your frequency densities. So I'm just going to put all of those in. I just don't feel like I need to spend too much time on those. I know you will have understood them. Okay, so they're the answers that you should have got for your grids. I'm now going to show you the actual histograms and what they should look like. So here is the histogram for question 1. Pause the video if you need to have a longer look at it. Here is the histogram, for question 2. Here is the histogram for question 3. And here is the histogram for question 4. The only thing that could be put in there that is missing is a title. So you could have a title that says something like, so obviously this is a title here, we do have a title. So if I just go back, see the amount of teacher travel. But in your exam, obviously just make that very clear. You could put it just above the histogram here. Okay, the amount teachers travel in a week, money spent in a shopping in a shopping trip. I should have put during one day or at a shopping trip. Okay, so I hope now that you understand how to represent grouped continuous data on a histogram. I hope you know how to find the frequency density in order to draw the histogram. And I really hope that you know by now that the area of each bar represents the frequency. Okay, so well done. That was a really nice lesson. I really hope you understood it. Thank you so much for using Qubit Education, and I hope to see you next time.